Dealing with being that close to death on so many different occasions,
You almost get used to it.
but that's not something that you should
You
you should
literally.
get used to.
It's not. No.
But
No.
I
No, I'm
think
gonna
that's
say
where the
this.
trauma comes in, though, and that's
That's
why
why I was
we
going.
talk about post-traumatic
That's
stress.
why I was getting to the point that I start forgetting things. Because now in the post life, after, I'm not gonna tell you that I'm forgetting things, but I'm forgetting things that happened to me before this, and the stuff that's happening right now. I'm not forgetting it, but I can't talk to you about stuff that you are talking to me about that happened before Iraq, because I don't want you to think that I don't love you anymore. I don't, you know.
Welcome back to Heart Matters with James and Jessica Carter. We're so excited to have you guys back into our conversation once again. This episode is going to be a bit heavier than some of the episodes that you probably have seen come from us so far. In this episode, we're going to discuss post-traumatic stress disorder and how do we deal with it in our relationship. As many of you already know, we are veterans. James has deployed to Iraq twice during his career. And throughout that process and the deployments, we've had to navigate some changes in our life, in our marriage, due to the fallout of the stress of the things that he's had to do while he was there. While you were in Iraq, love, you've had to do some things that you felt like were probably hard to do, but they were all necessary for the survival of you and for the people that you were deployed with. And coming back from that, I noticed that you came back a different person. Now, we always talk about how people, as you get older, you grow, you change, as you experience things in life, you change because your experiences begin to shape who you are. Initially, we're shaped by the way we're reared, the way we're raised. Yeah. But then as we begin to experience life on our own terms, we begin to adapt to the individuals we've had to become based upon certain circumstances that we've had to endure. And I noticed when you came back from Iraq, like I said, that you were a different person. In that, I think it was hard for me initially to understand the different person that you had become. Because, I mean, this guy I've been with since, 15 and 17 years old. Yeah. And so you feel like you know a person. We've been together for so many years, and we've developed this thing where we can complete each other's sentences. And then all of a sudden you come back and now it's like, how do I navigate his thoughts? How do I read you? I used to be able to know, like, if I look at you, I can tell what you're thinking. I can tell what you're about to say, what you're about to do. Yep. But after deployment, especially the second deployment, I think after the first one, you were able to spend a little bit more time because we hadn't quite gotten married yet. Yeah. But after the second deployment, we were living together in the same household. And so I was able to see the differences. And I think for so long, we didn't really address it. We just kind of tiptoed around it. And as we tiptoed around it, I saw how things had gotten progressively worse. And as things got progressively worse, we had to address it. We had to get to a point to where we can't just act like everything is normal, everything is the same. And so as we began to address certain things, I almost felt like for a minute, like we were gonna break in certain points. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I mean,
like
it was hard. I mean, it's not like it's easy now. I mean, what you're saying, yeah, it's.
And I know this conversation is difficult for you right now. That's why I'm like kind of, tiptoeing around it, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll say this, that, I had to learn this as time progressed, and when I went and did, some of the counseling that I had to do with therapy and all that stuff, the counselor, the therapist, she kind of made the statement that a lot of guys don't understand, or people don't understand, when you have a traumatic situation that happens in your life, it sometimes takes time, it lies dormant until the right circumstance, the right situation, the right, it could take 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, and just things start happening, dreams, and if they go away, they come back, and I know it with me and a lot of other people. I'll just talk about my personal, it was more so, how do I say this? Not wanting to admit, you know what I mean? Almost, how do I say this? Like, it's even hard to make a statement now. Like, I don't know, just thinking that you're okay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good. I don't have to deal with this. And like you said, when certain things start happening and you start seeing things, now certain things are, I guess they're spilling out that I'm not okay, but I'm saying I am. Like, I can take care of myself. I got this. We good. I can keep the lid on. I can keep the pressure down,
Because you had even started saying stuff like when we would have like a situation and I would try to express stuff to you, you would be like, and I'm telling you like, this is how I feel about a certain thing, and or this is how what you're doing is making me feel. Your response would be, okay, I can police myself. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, how did we get from, me trying to express to you how I'm feeling about something, and then you going immediately to almost like I felt like you were feeling like I was, and I've said it before, like I feel like you was feeling like I was the enemy. Like if I said something, it was like there was always, you were going into attack mode. And I felt like it was happening at the oddest times. Like I'll be like, okay, we're just having a regular old conversation, and now all of a sudden, it's like a switch flip.
I think it got worse for me because I had it all together. So I thought, I, when I started forgetting things, you know what I mean, like, and not like not a amnesia or what's the word I'm looking for, the disease.
Like Alzheimer's?
Alzheimer's,
Dementia?
yeah, Alzheimer's. It wasn't an Alzheimer's or dementia style forgetfulness. It was more of a, I don't know, some of the trauma that we had to deal with, because, I won't talk about it now because I don't want to get into that side of things, but, just like you said, the first time I went down, I'll say this real quick. When I went down the first time, when we got back, one of the guys that I know, he ended up killing his wife. When we got back, we was having a good time over at the dorms. Some stuff happened. He came over where we was at. After he killed his wife, he came over where we were at, and we just was hanging out all night or whatever. And then the next morning, police came over, took us all in, trying to figure out what's going on. He ended up killing his wife, and they asked us, were we with him? And like, yeah, he was with us. Like, we were together all night, having fun. But we didn't know that before he showed up with us, he had just did this. And it seemed like he was the regular, he was good to go. So what happened was, he ended up, doing what he did. I won't talk about that, but he did what he did. And the police, they were, they had to force him, how do I say this? They had to tell him, they had to make him believe that he did this.
Wow.
And they couldn't get him to believe it. The way that they got him to believe that he did this was that they had video footage of him going to the bank, and he took her body he drug her body out of the car, threw her body over the ATM machine thing, and they got all this stuff on video. And him getting back in the car and taking off, and I guess that's when he came up to where we was at. But they showed him this video, and all he did was sit there and boo-hooed and cried, because he couldn't remember none of that. They had his wedding ring print all over her body, But he had forgotten. Like, he didn't remember none of this stuff, didn't know he had did any of this stuff. He had did some drinking. He was drinking real bad too. But when he came back over to us, and, just thinking about that and how that happened to him, and now fast forward with me, years after that was my first deployment when that happened, because we had to do some stuff. In that first deployment, it was traumatic. When we first got there, me and some of the guys I went with, my battle buddies, my closest friends, to this day, when we first got there, that same night when we got from Kuwait to Iraq, they sent in like 6 or 7 to 8 bombs, and we all traumatized, throwing our stuff on. And it's just, you go from a peaceful mentality to just, you're thrown into this situation. And I was a kid, I'm 19, 20 years old, so I gotta just deal with this and figure it out, So I gotta tell myself, you're good, it's okay. So I got into the business of saying, you got this, this. And now here I am. We do a 9-month deployment. I do the second time, 15 months. I almost died. I don't want to talk about none of that stuff either. But, we certain situations that we went through, all that stuff is built up. But you're being told while you're there, which, they tell us before you go on certain missions, you're not a father, you're not a brother, you're not they go through all these things, and they force you to think like this so that when you go on the mission, you can make it back so that you're not thinking about these things because it could throw you off with based on the mission that you have to do or whatever. So when you're forced to think that way, you think that you're okay. And then when we got back, they didn't send us to no therapist. Like we didn't have to go through the I don't know if you remember when we first got
Yeah,
back.
I remember. You just got to make sure you check off every block on the piece of paper.
That's it.
You're reintegrated back into
We
society.
right back
There
into
you go.
it. Yep. And we just had to be good. And I'll say this though.
But hold on, before you say that,
wait.
I want to back up because you said two things that I really want to address. You said that when the bombs came in and y'all got to a point to where you would just convince yourself, I'm good, I'm okay, I'm all right. Even though you're in this very stressful situation, you continuously told yourself over and over, I'm good, I'm okay, I got this. And I noticed that when things would happen that should be stressful, you would react the same way here back at the house to where I'm good, I'm okay, I got it, like even in conversation. And I could literally see that your mind and your wheels are just turning, but it's like, no, you're not okay. Like, but it's almost as if in order to survive, you had to convince yourself that you were okay. And so that survival instinct doesn't just shut off. I think people think that, when you go to war, you're gonna go over there, you create this and you're gonna do this. But when you come back, like you said, when y'all came back, there was no reintegrating you all back into, what was it, like 2 weeks of making sure y'all was meeting certain physical appointments and things like that. And then all of a sudden now, we back to business as usual. You're back to going to work.
And then we had to walk around with guns loaded, ready to go, firing them when we go out, off the thing. I didn't fire the first time I went down. I didn't go off the thing the first time, but the second time around, we had to do some things that we had to go out or whatever. So that whole, like you said, that whole mentality that I can walk around with a weapon and I'm good. And then we had, I ain't talk about all this stuff. They had the ROE to where with the ROE, we couldn't fire unless fired upon because what had started happening was, these guys the soldiers were killing the civilians, so we had to be careful because they was gonna put us in jail for 35 years if we fired and our bullet went down and it killed somebody and they didn't fire back. So we gotta have to deal with also the stress of being aimed at and not shot at yet, but the possibility was enough, So the stress and the trauma and in my mind, I forced myself really to forget all of this stuff. And I say that because, and I talked about this before, when I came back home and we was marching in, and I see my daughter scream my name and my wife, they don't need that side of me. You know what I mean? Like they don't want that side of me. They don't need him. I can shut that guy off. You know what I mean? Because you have to become a whole different person. It's like a schizophrenic, which is why I was telling you guys about that story with my friend who ended up killing his wife or whatever. You become a schizo.
You disassociate.
Yes, you literally have to become somebody totally different, and that's that situation. But PTSD in its rarest form is dealing with a traumatic situation after the fact,
right?
And trying to figure out how and who I am, like you said earlier, who I am now after that situation. Because it was a lot of situations to where when one of my friends, like I think about this stuff, I didn't think about this stuff before because I forced myself not to think about it. Mm-hmm. And I think as time progressed, I had to. It started coming up. I'm dreaming, and in these dreams, I'm having, I'm literally reliving these situations that I thought I had forgotten. I thought I wasn't, a friend of mine right now who's, he's going through some stuff, but we were together on this tower, my first deployment. We was on this tower, and we had to watch. And I said, hey man, I'm gonna go to sleep. I remember this stuff now vivid because I've been having these dreams. But I said, hey, I'm gonna go to sleep, man, because I'm tired. He said, all right, well, you go to sleep and then we'll take a shift. We're not supposed to do this. We're gonna take shifts or whatever. So I fall asleep and I end up waking up because I heard like a, I woke up and he was still asleep. I said, hey, wake up. I almost called his name. I said, hey, wake up, man, what are you doing? He jumps, he's like, what? I said, did you hear that? He said, what are you talking about? I didn't hear nothing. And literally seconds later, bomb blows up. Shrapnel beats up the outside. Now I'll say this. Before this happened, 2 weeks prior, we had these wooden buildings, these like little shacks. 2 weeks prior, they upgraded to these deep stone things, and it was thick, probably about, 8 to 10 inches thick of stone. Fast forward now to this. This thing blows up, shrapnel hits, and it tears that shack up that was right beside us. And it literally beat the outside of this stone thing that we was in up. Technically, had they not done this 2 weeks prior, we would still been in the shack that we had been in all this time, we would have been gone. We got out, the next day came out, looked at it, it was a huge hole behind us.
So
Literally a
dealing,
huge.
but so dealing with being that close to death on so many different occasions,
You almost get used to it.
but that's not something that
You
you should
literally.
get used to.
It's not no.
But I
no
think
I'm gonna
that's
say
where the
this.
trauma comes in, though, and that's
That's
why
why I was
we
going.
talk
That's
about
why I was.
post-traumatic stress.
That's why I was getting to the point that I start forgetting things. Because now in the post life, after, I'm not gonna tell you that I'm forgetting things, but I'm forgetting things that happened to me before this, and the stuff that's happening right now. I'm not forgetting it, but I can't talk to you about stuff that you are talking to me about that happened before Iraq, because I don't want you to think that I don't love you anymore. I don't, you know.
It's okay. I know where you're going with this because I remember us having the conversation, and for me, I didn't realize how traumatic that was for you. And you know, me trying to volunteer to go to Iraq, not even knowing what would become of that, but not understanding how traumatic that was for you. And then, when you first mentioned what you're talking about now, how we were in the middle of an argument. And I'm like, I just don't get it. I don't understand. Like, I'm trying my best to relate to you. I'm trying to understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
And then when you finally broke down and said, I just don't remember. Like you said, the words you said to me was, I know that I love you. I know that I'm in love with you. I just don't know why I love you. Like, and it was like, at first I was like, what do you mean you don't know why? You was like, I don't remember. Like I remember when I first started, I knew she was gonna be my wife, but the life that we built along the way prior to Iraq, I don't remember a lot of that. And for me, that's when I knew that, okay, if I can't do anything else, I can help put those pieces back together. And then putting those pieces back together, that puts us back together. So even stuff like looking through our wedding book, you know, the pictures, and looking through pictures that we took with family members when we traveled, you know, back to visit family back over here in the States, or trips that we had taken, things we did, you know, before you went to Iraq with Ayanna, memories that we made, being able to go back to those pictures. And I think that's so important to be able to have those type of things to go back and to look into, because nobody thinks that. And they didn't think this. They didn't think about what this would do to these young men and women when they send them over to Iraq and to war, you know, train them up, ship them out. Nobody thought about the trauma that you guys were going to experience coming back home. And so being able to help you to put those pieces back together, for me, it made me feel like I have a purpose and I don't want to say job, but it's like I have a purpose in your healing process. And I think a lot of times and I think it's good though too, that we were able to do that and you were able to communicate that to me, because a lot of guys go through some of the things that you went through and they don't know how to communicate how they're feeling. They don't feel like there's somebody they can talk to. They feel sometimes helpless. They feel alone. And I think even there was a time when even you felt like you were alone in dealing with that, even though like every night I'm laying in the bed with you, I'm making dinner with you, we're talking, we're laughing, we're having regular conversations. And then all of a sudden you can go into this space to where I'm like, everything okay? You all right? And then you're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And you had gotten so accustomed to, that's why I addressed it earlier, that I'm good. I'm okay. I got this. And then I'll be like, what do you mean you good? You got this, like, you got what? But you wouldn't articulate that. And I'm happy though that I didn't pressure you so much that it pushed you away. I left a crack in the door for you to know that I see you. I see there's a difference in you. I love you today the same way I loved you, the guy that you couldn't remember who you were. And whenever you're ready to talk about it, let's discuss. And when you were ready, even though I did push a few times, are you ready? Because sometimes we can't just leave it up to someone who's going through PTSD to know when they're ready to come to talk to someone, or to even feel like there's someone available for them to talk to. It's important. I believe that it's important that when you have someone going through something like what you're going through, that someone like me is able to show myself as available, and not just show myself as available, but also reassure you that as abnormal as it seems, what you're going through is normal. Because y'all think sometimes that there's something wrong with me. I'm broken or I need fixing. And it's like, no, you're not broken. it's natural for us to want to protect ourselves. And really dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder is almost like a protection mechanism that is overloaded to where you've been protecting yourself for so long that the circuit has shorted, and now I'm faced with a flood of emotion that I have to deal with, but I have to deal with all these things that I have pushed so far back in my mind that I said I would never go back to that space, but that space is pulling me back.
Yeah, I say this too, that us having genuine love and not the, that love that people put on that, I'm doing this for
I'm there for you. If you need me, call me type of situation.
Yeah, or just the either lust or they put a mask on so they can look good in front of their friends, or we got married because our friends got married, or that kind of stuff. When we don't have that. I feel like we have genuine love because you see me at a point when because we had some conversations, like some bad conversations.
Hard.
Yeah, stuff that I don't want to talk about now that I said to you, but I said that out of a state of, like you said, post-traumatic stress to where I'm dealing with it, and I really I wanted to go. I want to be myself. I don't need this. I don't need, and then you having to love me from what we talked about before with once you have the tank and the tank is full. I remember, because you remembered all of that stuff. I don't remember certain key things I feel like I needed to remember about why I love you, and we talked about that,
Right.
why I love you, who you are, all that jazz, but you were able to go back into, or really to break all that post-traumatic stuff down and to get in through that, and then to go, like you said, and reintroduce me to who I was, reintroduce me to.
Wow.
It's hard to get out. You have to reintroduce me to my family, to to what I love, what tethered me down. And I'm saying this because my second time when I went down, I had a soldier who, he tried to kill himself because what we was going through over there. And then when he came back to the States, and when he came back, I don't want to tell all of this story, but when, some stuff happened when he came back, and it just depressed him. He was really depressed, and then we had to be with him for another however long. I remember they came and they got me. Hey, sorry, you got to come over here. Such and such. They're trying to kill themselves. And I remember I get over to his room and he's sitting there. He's got these pills and he's going through what he's going through. And I told everybody else to get out. And I remember the first thing I did because of what I thought, and it was bad. But I smiled. I almost smiled and laughed. And he said, "You think this is funny?" And, he wanted to. And the reason why, now that I'm thinking about it afterwards, I didn't laugh at him, but I was thinking to myself that maybe I want this same thing. You know what I mean? Like maybe I want to be out too, because what we were going through, we had to be away. Just the separation alone is enough to run anybody crazy. To be away from your loved ones, your family, and all this for 15 months. Not alone all the other stuff that they make you go through when you're down there, But I remember I said, I'm not laughing at you, man. I said, I'm not laughing at you. I said, but I'm thinking of something right now. Because he had told me of all of these things that, he loved. We had deep conversations, he and I. And I got to know all my soldiers, all different, all of my soldiers, whatever, in their different capacities. But one of the things he talked about was, his family, one of his family members had a drug issue, and that family member had kids, and he had to come in sometimes and see them in a certain way, and he had to get his nieces out of this situation. He was mad at this other person for what they were doing in front of the kids. And, I remember I brought that back up to him. I said, because I knew that's what tethered him. That's what brought him back. That's what he held dear. The thing that he held dear that he won't leave. I said, if
there was somebody there that was depending on him.
Exactly. I said, I told him, I said, man, if they were to see you like this, how would you feel? Because now technically you're giving them what you felt like the other person gave them, the kid. That child who you felt dearly for. I said, you can't leave them. They need you. I said, if they saw you right now, and I remember when I said that, he threw everything down, pushed the pills away and got up and we hugged. And I said, they need you. I said, if they lose their parents for whatever reason, if it's for drugs or something like that, they would be literally devastated if they lose them and they lose you. I had to figure out a way to tether him back. So I said that to say this, and I think the Holy Ghost gives me all this, as the Holy Ghost gave me the words to say to him, when I get to this situation with my family, he brings the same thing back through you to me. What tethered me to being sane, you know what I mean? my family, like the love, the genuineness, the realness, the laughter, all that stuff is what tethers me. And I think that people that have PTSD, they need to know that there's somebody there that loves them. And I'm talking about real love, not the little play, I say I love you in front of your face, but then when I walk behind the back, I'm gonna talk about you, or I'm gonna go tell my friends, did you know what this person said? And I say I love you, but I'm talking about you on the back end, not knowing that what you're going through is a real situation. Like, it's depressing, mental illness is a real thing. Like, we have people killing themselves because of these things, or they're homeless. Their families have walked away
They're
from
not
them.
functioning.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly.
you said when you were talking about the real love, and then you're gonna, not that fake stuff where you're gonna say you love me and then you go off and you do whatever. I think with that comes a level of protection, because when you love someone, you want to protect that person. And I mean, it means I want to guard you. I want to guard your heart. I want to make sure that I don't put you in a space to where you're going to blow up and then come out of character. And now you can't, because once you do something, it can't be undone. Or put you into a space to where I make you so vulnerable to other people, feeling like it's okay to attack you. And that's why I was talking to someone earlier about how, because it's funny how the conversation even came about dealing with someone dealing with PTSD or dealing with depression or something like that. And my thing is, I can only pull from the experiences I have with dealing with you. And so in dealing with that, because I love you so much, I would not dare want you to be out there feeling like you're unprotected. So even when we're sitting in certain spaces, or if we, like, let's say if we're in a meeting, I can tell when your body language shifts, or when something changes, or when your voice raises. And most people will be like, oh, like, and I'm like, wait, calm down. And most people are like, no, like, his voice was normal. I'm like, no, that's not normal for him. And when you love a person, you get to know that person. So you're able to identify the shifts and changes in their personality. So I know now I have to come in and I have to be your protection. And when we can dig more into protecting each other in a relationship, but in this regard, this is when I know that my husband needs me to step in and I need to be his protection. I need to make sure that I'm guarding him from any outside forces, so that no matter what goes down, he does not feel like he is alone in dealing with this. Because there's so many people that, like you said, they feel like they're alone. And so you reminding that soldier about the fact that there are people who love you and depend on you. But even outside of the dependency aspect of it, there are people who genuinely love you, because sometimes you can get so deep in that space that you feel unlovable, especially when you're talking about dealing with war and some of the things that you have to do to survive. You start to feel like, I don't deserve certain things, and then there are certain things that I do deserve to happen to me because I've done X, Y, and Z. And then you think, like, how can someone like love me after all the things I've done? But the reality is, it doesn't matter what you've done. I love you, and I'm going to be there to protect you and to reassure you that you are loved, so that when you get into that dark space, you can always remember that when the things try to play back in your mind, and your mind tries to tell you that you're in this alone, you gotta have you, or I gotta check me, like you would say. No, you don't have to do that by yourself. Nobody can survive this alone. It takes having somebody who is genuinely going to be there with you, who is genuinely going to support you. And I love that for us, which is crazy, because a lot of people that look at us and they're like, oh my God, you guys are so happy, you guys are so great, and everything is so perfect in your life. Even our kids said one time, our daughter said, I don't know if you remember this, because Ayana said one time, you guys are just so perfect. And I'm like, babe, like, we are so far from perfect. I think we just have mastered the art of protecting each other and knowing how to ensure that we don't allow our wounds to remain open, so that the world can get in there and do further damage to one another. Like, you wouldn't want somebody to do further damage to me, and I would not dare want anybody to do further damage to you. And then knowing that this is an area that is crucial for you, the moment that I recognize that something is not quite right, there's a shift in your personality. All right, guys, we're out. Like, great night. Have fun with y'all. We gotta go. Or great having you all over. See you all next time. Trying to put people out of the house. because, and that's not always the case for y'all who be thinking that, oh, when we was at their house, that's what they meant. No, that's not always the case. But it is important that the person who is that support system, or the people who are the support system, is able to recognize the shifts and the changes as quickly as possible. Because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think me now getting to the point to where I'm able to recognize the changes a little bit quicker than before, I think it helps to keep you from going so far into that dark space.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I was right or wrong.
You're right. I mean, it's just something that, I don't like to talk about it, obviously, I don't want to talk about it. My wife told me we needed to talk about it, so we talk about it. But no, she's right what she said, though. You definitely...
So now the people gonna think I forced you to talk about it.
No, I mean,
but it's important that people, because so many people, and I thought it was important for us to discuss this because so many people look at us and they come to us for counseling and things like that, and they have this idea when we give them certain tools to utilize in their day-to-day lives that we're speaking from a place of perfection, or we don't understand what it's like to navigate or deal with certain things. But the reality is, we navigate life the same way everybody else. We deal with things. We rely heavily on our faith to get us through that. Exactly. So our faith and our love for each other is what helps us to get through a lot of the things that we go through. And I thought sharing this with people would be a good way for people to really understand that just because everything looks great on the outside, that doesn't mean that there's never anything wrong. Yeah. It's just because people will be like, oh, my spouse, went crazy or did whatever, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and then you just walk out. Like, how do you deal with that? But no, I feel like we are a good example of how to successfully navigate dealing with someone or being in a relationship or in a marriage when one partner has experienced such severe trauma that it continues to replay over and over, even years sometimes after feeling like, oh, no episode, we're good, everything is just normal. And then all of a sudden, bam, something happens and it pulls us back into this deep, dark space. But we have to work together to get back to the light.
Yeah. You said something too about faith, and you guys know I believe in God, my wife, we believe in God dearly, and having faith. Because the Bible says that the prayers of the righteous availeth much. So getting together and praying at night, and that for sanity, that for God to change, to shift, to bring back my memory, all that stuff. I think that the Holy Ghost has been slowly doing that throughout the years or the time past after some of those particular episodes that I had. That if we start really praying, and we got particular about what we were praying for. Being precise about. Exactly what it was.
I knew you was gonna say that.
Yeah, see, there we go again. But being precise about what we were praying for, that I think God began to rekindle. He began to just mending and fixing. Like you said, we're not perfect, Nor do I want to be, because if you're perfect, then you don't have anything to grow to. You don't have, the Bible says we go from faith to faith, glory to glory, and as you grow from faith to faith, you begin to trust God deeper and more, not just God, we begin to trust each other. God brings us closer, through all the stuff that we've been through, with you being able to sit down with me and bring back some of those memories that I had forgotten, that I even made at this time, still don't remember, but sitting down and hearing.
Working on it.
Yeah, but sitting down and hearing you talk about it makes me happy, because I know I love you, and I see how everything that we went through is phenomenal, because I have small memories, but not strong, and I think a lot of other people who've been through certain things, like you took it, you took things and you forget things, because they beat that in our heads about us not being fathers, and because we wanted to come back. There was a time when I went out with the Marines, and I'm not gonna talk about some of the stuff that we did with them, but we were gone for some time. I came back, I had a beard, but we had to go rebuild the Syrian border and do some stuff that that we did when I was with them, and I was just like all those times that I thought I had forgot. When I started falling asleep, I started remembering all this stuff, and it started coming back, and I'm like, oh man, wait, I did do this, I did do that, and then.
So what advice would you give to someone who...
They don't take no advice from me. No,
See, I struggled to even get to the question. As soon as I got to the question.
I don't like to give advice on this particular
my question though is, what advice would you give to someone who is living with someone who's dealing with PTSD, like how from someone who is dealing with PTSD, and there is, I mean, kind of obviously how our relationship works, but what are some tips you would give somebody who is trying to help somebody that's dealing with that? Because sometimes we may think, like, you had to teach me some things and tell me some things that you was like, that's just not gonna work. Like,
Okay, well, let me say this.
like,
Let me say this. This is not counseling. Please go and seek out professional counseling.
Definitely.
If you guys are going through some stuff, but I'll say what we went through, and for me, myself personally, you being gentle with me, you being understanding, you listening to me, you hearing me, and it took some time for that, because at first I had got you mad, you were mad because years I had said nothing. I'm in it by myself, so now that stuff is spilling out, things are coming out, and so now we get into arguments, it just got bad. So I think you being gentle with me, you helping me, you sitting down and talking to me, you having communication, honestly. I mean, really communication, but not harsh communication, not battering, not, why didn't you tell me? You should have told me a long time ago.
I did start out like that.
I'm divorced. No, you didn't.
I didn't start out harsh.
No, you didn't. Well, you were harsh, but not saying those words.
Oh, no, I have no divorce.
Yeah. No, not saying, I'm not divorced, but I'm saying you didn't say, like, why didn't you tell me before? Like, it wasn't a harsh thing. It was just you was mad about your feelings and your feelings not being seen. So you wanted to make it known that your feelings was everything, and then me with my feelings trying to deal with all this other stuff I had going on. I think we were just kind of battling just each one of us having our separate mental, because you had your own particular PTSD that we didn't talk about here, that we should have talked about with the casualty stuff, where those people that passed, that you had to go and write up all that stuff on and then here I am in Iraq going through all this stuff, and it goes black, and then now they're telling you it looks like the same number that was my unit's number, all that stuff, and then you had to write up the thing for the soldier that you knew son dying all of a sudden, the girl that got ran over by the train, like all that stuff that you had to go. So you had to deal with your particular PTSD. So together, we had to figure out how to be gentle with each other, with understanding that there's a lot of our history. Don't touch the mic. Don't touch the microphone. But there's a lot of our history that we have to see each other in. And I think in communication, I can't think that I'm the only one dealing with what I'm dealing with.
And I didn't, and it's so funny though, because now hearing you bring all of that back up, I think I got so wrapped up for a minute in making sure you were okay. And because I naturally just don't deal with stuff. Yeah. Like I'm naturally war didn't teach me to be like, I'm okay. I don't know, maybe growing up in Gretna did, taught me to just be like, I'm good.
Don't talk about that.
But I didn't.
Those family things.
But I didn't realize how affected I was by the things that I experienced while I was a soldier, because in your mind it's like, well, you didn't deploy, you didn't go to war. But when you work in the casualty office and you got a mass casualty coming through, you a 19-year-old soldier sitting there and reports are coming in of soldiers dying and being seriously injured, and then not seriously injured, and then all of a sudden the phone rings and there's a spouse on the line asking you questions. We're not allowed to talk to them. We just have to direct them to, their unit commander, and they're gonna get with you. Exactly. But somebody made a mistake and allowed the not seriously injured soldiers to call home. And I'm on the phone with this lady and she's asking me questions, and I'm trying to tell her, reading my little script, sorry, unfortunately, I'm unable to give you any information, and then as she says the guy's name, I'm literally looking, he's the only soldier that was killed in action during that mass casualty event. And I literally have to sit here while my husband, or at the time he was my fiance when this happened, is overseas, knowing that in Iraq, knowing that if I were in her shoes, I would want to know, but I can't tell her.
That's traumatic.
So I have to deal with that. And I literally I just brushed it all to the side. And I think sometimes, even when it came to, we talked about the miscarriage and stuff like that, even when it came to that, I'm okay, I'm all right. It is well, that's how I dealt with everything. Not realizing that I had my own share of trauma that I did not deal with, and then I would just automatically have a panic attack. And just out of the blue,
you know what?
Sitting there.
Based on what we're talking about now, the first video that we did, those first two-part videos that we did, they're so important for this point right now. God said it's not good for man to be alone. And we put ourselves in an alone state when we like that. Like I was putting myself in an alone state when I kept saying, because I think I'm good, I'm okay.
But I think we feel like When we invite other people into our space, that allows us. We open ourselves up to be hurt.
Yep, yep. And the crazy thing is, now that you say this, with PTSD in that situation, I was treating you like you were somebody else,
Yeah.
excuse me, and not technically one. My wife, my God sees us as the same person. So because I'm treating you as somebody else, I say to myself, I'm okay, and I separate myself because I'm not fully being honest with you about what's really going on in here and what's really happening,
Yeah.
physically. When I say physically, I mean like stress, my back started killing me, but it's stress because I'm trying to figure out how to not tell you that I can't remember stuff. I can't, just so much going on in the middle. I'm having dreams. I'm going through all these things. So I'm really putting myself in an alone state. And God said it's not good for man to be alone from the beginning, which is why he created Eve and put them together, conjoined them to be one so that they can deal with the stresses of life or the things that he had already created down here together as one unit, So it's very important. Like I said, if you guys haven't watched that first video, those first 2-part videos that we did, 1 and 2, go back and watch those videos because they're very important for this particular point that we're trying to make now. Because it's not good. It wasn't good for me to be alone. Being alone was horrible. But when I actually brought you in,
But it's possible to be, and I definitely want to clarify this so people understand that it's very possible for you to be physically with other people and still have created an alone space for yourself. You've isolated yourself to the point to where mentally it's just me.
Yep.
I got to take care of me. I can't depend on anybody else to do it. And that's a very dangerous space. Like PTSD, depression, those type of things will put you in that space to where you feel like it's just me. Like nobody cares. If I'm not here, nobody's gonna, care that if I just end it all today. Yeah, it's better if I'm gone. Like, no, it's not better. It's the reason why you feel that way is because you've conditioned your thoughts to be alone, and you've convinced yourself that you're dealing with your situation by yourself. So it's important to allow the people around you to be there for you. It's necessary, not just for the healing process, but it's necessary to help you not to go back to that state.
Exactly.
Because you can go through a healing process and then all of a sudden one thing can happen and it'll bring you right back there. But if you can remember that I have people that I can go to when something happens, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna talk to my safe space. I'm gonna go in, and not necessarily that I'm looking for advice or I need them to say anything, but I need to be able to at least get this out into my safe space. And sometimes as a safe space, you just gotta hug them, hold them tight, like show that affection, let them know that they're loved, remind them, how dope they are, remind them of why the world needs them, why God created them and placed them into this world. We all have a purpose. And I think sometimes depression and post-traumatic stress disorder and all type of mental illnesses, they try to strip us of our purpose. And so we need people sometimes to remind us that we are necessary. We are needed and we are loved.
And the Bible says that in this world, we're going to have tribulations. We're going to have trials. We're going to go through.
We so churchy, y'all.
Yeah.
I love it, though.
But it's a true statement. And I think God gives us, because the Bible says he gives us peace that surpasses all understanding, And I read my Bible all the time, but I think that in reading and understanding and seeing God, it helps me to get out of that. Because if I know that, based on what the Bible says, I'm going to have tribulations and trials, why beat myself up more with things that have happened in my past if I already know that the world's going to bring extra? So if I'm already beating myself up, then the world brings more, and I get tribulation on top of that. Now I get into a place that you just said, that I'm depressed and I'm thinking that I just need to, kill myself or do that. And that's not the case. The enemy, the devil, always doing everything he can anyway to stop my mission, my goal, my purpose that God has called me for. And if I make it easy for him by doing that, which I've done it before. I'm not talking to people. I'm really talking about myself and who I am and what I've done, which is why I've grown from that point now to get to where I'm trying to go at. I can't allow that to be my now. Yeah, I went through that. I did that. I put my hand up. I said, I'm going. You did what you did. You went through your traumas, your stress, all the stuff that you did while I was in the military. We have to understand that we're at a different level in life. But at the level that we are now, God loves us here.
Yes.
He'll love us tomorrow. He'll love us the day after that. And as we grow in what we are, that's where wisdom comes at. Wisdom comes in understanding who you are today and what you've came through and how you've gotten where you are now. Because now I can go back and I can teach. I can bring someone else in that has a particular traumatic situation that I may have came through, and that I'm still working. Not saying that I'm perfect, because Paul said that I count myself not to have apprehended. I don't know everything, but this one thing I do, forgetting the stuff that's behind me. So now you see him writing a whole third of the book of the Bible, but he was killing Christians. He was just getting rid of people. He was just offering folks that were saying that they believed in Jesus. And had he allowed that to stay his normal, his thing, we wouldn't saw him become who he became.
That's so good, because I never even thought about that. Is that when you think about the story of Paul, in order for him to be effective in walking out his purpose, he had to, in an essence, forgive himself for the things that he did that would traumatize him had he not forgiven himself.
Yep.
And I think that's another thing that we have to consider too when dealing with PTSD, is that you have to forgive yourself for the space that you were in that's causing you to be in this particular space right now. Because once you can forgive yourself, you're able to understand that what I did in that moment was necessary. What I experienced in that moment may have been necessary, but that doesn't have to be the person that I continue to be. And I don't have to allow that to rob me of the future that I can have and the present that I'm currently living in.
Because even Paul said, he begged God to take the thorn out. You know, I got a thorn. God said, my grace is sufficient. It's okay. You're good. Move past, like you said, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for who you may have been. Because Paul, I love Paul. Paul even made a statement that when I was a child, I spake as a child. I did childish things. I did that stuff then. But when I became a man, I became an adult, I put away childish things. Which means, like you said, I forgave myself for who I was then and the things that I did. In good conscience, at the time, I did that stuff. Like with me, when I went to Iraq, we did certain things. I did those things. But I can't allow those things to fester and say that that's who I am now, because that's not who I am. I'm not that 19-year-old boy that did, certain things and all that. I'm not that guy now. I've grown so far past that now, and I have to use that as my foundation, but keep moving forward and look towards God to get my wisdom and my understanding, because I have kids. I got my 2 boys. I got my daughter. I got 2 daughters, pretty much. That we got to raise. I got my wife. I got back to the thing that tethers me, that family, the thing that pushes me, that forces me to become better, to grow, to keep going, to understand that this life needs me. Not just me, like I have others that need me. I have others that love me. I have others that, that wants to just sit in my presence and laugh and talk and enjoy the time. All of that stuff is very important, and like you said, it's very possible to be sitting in this present and be alone. Be ready in your household with all those same people I just talked about, and be in an alone state because you're allowing yourself to be there. You're forcing yourself to be there because you're being something that's not real. You're not technically being true to yourself, and you're not communicating, because I wasn't. I was sitting right there in the house with everybody and acting like everything was good, and it wasn't. But when it started coming out, it started spitting. I'm so happy that it happened the way it happened, because I saw your gentleness. I saw your humbleness. I saw your, all that stuff. And you brought me back to where I am now. And then, with the Holy Ghost and the scriptures and all that stuff. This is very important. I didn't want to talk about it, but it is very important.
But I'm happy.
I'm happy we did.
Yeah, and I'm happy we talked about it tonight too. And I mean, I feel like if we can leave the people with anything tonight, it would definitely be, number one, don't be afraid to acknowledge what you've gone through. Number two, once you've acknowledged it, don't allow it to control you. And then number three, it is definitely important that you have a safe space. Whether that be a family member, a friend, or even a therapist, somebody that you can go to, you can sit down, you can talk with, and you can share what you're feeling, what your thoughts are. Get it out, and during the process, it's gonna hurt. Like, I remember when you first started therapy, and I know we're supposed to be concluding, but I have to say this because I remember when you first started therapy, when you would come in the house and you would be like, I can't do this again. Like, she's got me bringing up all types of feelings and thoughts and things that I thought I had forgotten. But the reality is,
and it wasn't even just Iraq. She was going to some other stuff.
But the reality was that in order for you to work through that stuff, you had to first acknowledge it. You couldn't just act like it never happened and bury it away, bury it and not deal with it. You had to first face it head on, and now we can work and navigate our way through getting past or beyond that. So it's gonna be important that you don't keep stuff bottled up. Like, talk to someone. And if you're feeling like you want to hurt yourself or anything like that, call the suicide hotline. Call someone that you can talk to that's going to bring you back into this space and to remind you just how loved you are, just how needed you are. We thank you guys for tuning in tonight.
Thank y'all.
I say tonight, but it may be in the daytime by the time y'all watch this video. But we thank y'all for tuning in, and just know that even if you need to talk to us, we're here. If you and I know this was a heavier episode than some of our previous episodes, but if you guys have any questions or anything like that, and you don't want to put those questions in the comment section, you can inbox me. Inbox us those questions, and we will answer those questions. We will reach back out to you because we want to make sure that you are healed, that you are whole, and that you know that you're not the only person in the world who has gone through the things that you're going through. And that you're not the first, and you're definitely not going to be the last. There's going to be someone that's going to come after you, but you surviving it will allow you to be able to help them.
And if you need prayer, like my wife said, if you don't want to talk about what's going on, just put in the comment section or in the inbox. Just you can say your name or just say we need prayer. You don't have to say what it's for or anything, and we'll definitely pray for you guys, add you guys to our prayer list, because like I said earlier, the prayers of the righteous availeth much, and that's very important. So if you guys need prayer, like I said, you don't have to say anything as far as the details of what you need. Just say you need prayer, and we'll definitely add you guys to our prayer list. You want to say something else?
No, I want to kiss you.
All right, y'all. See y'all later.
You're so extra.